You get come about same thing. Yeah.
Just a January.
Yeah.
It is 6 p.m. on the 17th of November. This will commence the Buckley City Council special study session. And I believe City Administrator Burrell would like to introduce to the council our new city planner.
Yes, I am happy to introduce Mr. Chris Farnsworth. He's been with us for 1 week and 1 day. First day was last Monday. He's already attended his first planning commission meeting and is already knee deep in a bunch of projects, including the cost recovery that we'll be going over a little bit today. So we are so grateful to have him here. This is your city council.
Councilmembers, it's wonderful to meet you. I'm very happy to be here and I look forward to working.
Welcome.
Welcome.
So it looks like we're going to start with budget presentations, and I don't know if they want to do it in the order that's here. If that's the way, perfect. So we'll start with Public Works Director Banks.
Okay, we'll start. This is a little different than the format we used last year. We'll go over what we've accomplished in each utility for 2023, both operationally and for capital projects. And then we'll move into what we anticipate for key projects in both operations and capital projects for each utility in 2024. So we'll start with the water 2023 water system accomplishments. Most of these things are things that we do every year. So we completed and submitted all annual reports to DOH, completed sand filter cleaning, completed the system-wide leak survey that takes place once every 5 to 7 years, depending on the results of that. We had a dive team come in and clean our finished water reservoir. That basically that entails vacuuming the side walls and the bottom of the reservoir and getting any fine silt out of there. And they also inspect that facility for structural integrity, provide us with video and tell us what kind of shape it's in. And it happens to be in pretty decent shape. So that went well. This next one, installed 350 automatic water meter reads. I believe that's a little more, probably pushing 400 right now. So we're making some progress in that. And then the last one is increasing the sand filter hydraulic loading rate at the water treatment plant. That's in progress. It's not finished, but it probably will be finished by the end of the year. As for capital projects, in the water, we replaced 700 feet of water main on Collins Road, 70 feet of water main on Heather Lane, and installed 1,500 lineal feet of water main on Hinkleman Road, which is currently being done right now. We are currently installing an additional caustic soda injection point at the water treatment plant. This is to help corrosion control and pH, helps us regulate pH on our well water before it goes into the finished water reservoir. And we replaced the PLC, or the brain of the Elk Heights booster station. That kind of tells things when to go on and off and operates that computer. In 2024 for water, as far as operations, it's to continue meter replacements. The city needs to update the City of Buckley Marion Water Agreement. We'd like to revisit that. The old agreement is from the 70s, early 70s, one of them, maybe even older. We need to continue to update the water operations agreement with DSHS. That's been a slow walk. We've been talking about that for 2 years, but we're slowly working at it. We'll do our annual sand filter cleaning, and we need to get on fire hydrant flow testing. We like to do about 1/3 of the system's hydrants annually. For capital projects in the water, Main Street, River Ave to State Route 410, we'd like to replace the water main. That's part of a larger project, road project that we got TIB grant funding for the pedestrian improvement, the Foothills Trail pedestrian improvement. So we want to fix the water before we fix the road. So that'll be constructed next year. We'd like to design the Spruce Street water improvement. We want to continue to seek funding opportunities to replace segments of the water transmission main. We would like to do a Natchez well pilot study to study how to treat for manganese, because manganese is a problem in all of our wells. We'd like to perform a reservoir siting study. This is an addition to our finished water reservoir, potentially in a alternate location to have some redundancy and extra storage. This was on last year's capital improvement project list that we just didn't get to, but we bought what's called the Skagen building down at the wastewater treatment plant. We were trying to relocate a bunch of fence down there. We just haven't got around to it this year. We'd like to do that next year. We'd like to purchase some more automatic water meters so that we can continue that replacement project. And then it is already time to update the city's water comp plan.
I have a question that's come from a lot of citizens to me. And that is the work that's being done by the library. I'm assuming that's soil remediation being done by the county.
Yes. Yes.
The question I have, and I don't, you may know this, why did that even become an issue? Since it was soil that's contaminated below an established site. Who brought that up?
I think it's something that they've known for a long time.
Yeah.
And they finally got the funding to take care of it.
Yeah.
But I don't know,
I
honestly, but I
yeah.
think that's what
And
happened.
what I'm getting from my people that I know, why are we touching it? If it's contaminated, it will dissipate over a number of years if you're not building on it. So I was glad to tell them it's not ours. We're not doing it. It's the county's. And
Yeah.
I don't know why, unless somebody was going around looking for work, it was even brought up at this time.
Right. Yeah. They've been monitoring it for a long time. There's wells under River Ave before we repaved it. And they've been monitoring it for a long time.
I
but
know, but
yeah,
I've dealt with that kind of thing and we've either aerated or just let it sit as long as you're not disturbing it. You
Yeah.
Get away with that.
Oh, I just want to comment, that was Macaulay's gas station, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
That's what contaminated.
They're deep.
Oh, I don't.
They're digging
and I
deep.
don't doubt that there's contaminated
Oh, no,
soil.
was just-
I'm sure there's contaminated soil over at Van Tickles and everywhere else. It's just, how come this becomes an issue on a developed site that nobody's really touching? Usually you worry about it when you build.
Somebody tipped them.
It's just one of those, huh?
My question is, why is the county doing it? What is the county?
Because they own
They own the library.
Pierce County Library.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It's their
Might be-
building.
Got it.
I'd be required of them.
Even so, typically that kind of contamination dissipates over time, or you can inject microbes into it. And, and if you're not building anything, why bring it up?
I agree.
It's a lot of money that we're spending for very little return.
Councilmember Green.
Unrelated question. On the Main Street to River Ave, 410 water improvements, you said this is, there's TIB funding for this.
Mhm.
Does that fund all of it or a portion of it?
Just the road portion.
Okay.
And a portion of the pedestrian safety islands and stuff. You guys will see a design here probably in the next month, I would
Okay.
think.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt. but-
No, you're good. No,
It's just-
no, I'm
It's just something that our citizens say, what are you doing?
yeah, we're not doing
We're not
anything.
doing anything. I'm glad to say that.
Ready to roll?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Moving on to sewer. So 2023 sewer system accomplishments, operationally, we've implemented a new NPDS permit. All our monthly inspections at the wastewater treatment outfall, daily bar screen cleaning on Collins Road, daily wastewater treatment plant inspections and checks on plant equipment. Spiketon Road lift station inspections twice per week and rebuilt 2 basin mixers. Capital projects, bullets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all those projects, I can go through and read those. Those are all part of the 2022 consolidated utility project that were accomplished. I can read them if anyone wants me to read them, but that's what they are. And then right now we're currently performing the wastewater treatment plant outfall study. Moving on to 2024 sewer system anticipated key projects. We would like to clean at least 1,000 feet of sewer main. We need to install a magnesium tank and a concrete pad for underneath to support that magnesium tank at the wastewater treatment plant. This is part of the new NPDES permit on how we control the pH and the effluent that goes to the White River. And we need to inject this milk of magnesium into the water to treat for that pH 6 months a year, somewhere in there. That during the dry season, we don't have to. We might have that reversed. I'm not a technical guru in the wastewater treatment plant world. We need to rebuild some aerators for the basins at the wastewater treatment plant. We need to continue upgrading our system maps. As far as 2024 capital projects, there's the Spruce Street sewer improvement project design only. That's part of the larger scale Spruce Street rebuild. We need to upgrade our SCADA at the wastewater treatment plant. There's the fence relocation again at the wastewater treatment plant. We need to improve our access gate to the White River property. That's the property going down to our wastewater treatment plant outfall. That needs to be rebuilt. We'd like to perform an INI sewer study to study the INI that's getting into the sewer system to reduce infiltration. The expand and upgrade dump station at the wastewater treatment plant and the decant facility site study, that's kind of redundant. It's the same thing. That's a study to look at how we deal with our street sweepings and our catch basin cleanings and all the stuff that we pick up off the roads. Ours is quickly becoming way too small and we need to expand that. So we need to study what that looks like. There's all sorts of requirements around that. And then we have a bunch of miscellaneous mechanical replacements at the wastewater treatment plant.
Question.
Yeah.
Where is the White River property access gate?
It is
Okay.
if you're going north towards Enumclaw on Highway 410 or east on Highway 410 and you cross the flume,
The first one on the left?
not the one that runs on the east side of the flume, but the one that runs, it's just past that.
Right before the White River Bridge.
Right as you
Got it.
dip down over right before the White River Bridge, there's an old chain link.
It's a chain link
goofy
thing
Yeah,
that's all
yeah,
messed up.
yeah. Mhm.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep. Moving on to stormwater. 2023 operational accomplishments. Again, a lot of this stuff is stuff that we just do every year. We prepare annual report to DOE. We adopted the 2023 Stormwater Management Action Plan, or SMAP. We perform maintenance and inspections on both city detention ponds and private detention ponds. We cleaned 1,500 lineal feet of the Spiked ditch this summer. And we finished inspection and maintenance requirements for our CB catch basins within the DOE's required 2-year cycle. And we've already started the next 2-year cycle. Capital projects, bullets 1 through 4 are the top 4 bullets. Were part of the 2022 consolidated utility project. All those have been done. You guys just saw the Monday Lost Road storm improvement bid award at council. That should be starting up here shortly. And then the Hinkleman Road storm improvement project, which is currently underway. 2024 stormwater system anticipated key projects for operations. We need to begin to inspect 20% of our businesses for stormwater BMPs or best management practices. That's something that's newly required as part of our permit. We'll be submitting a 2023 annual report to DOE. We'll adopt a 2024 stormwater management plan. We're hoping to clean and inspect 800 catch basins. Perform our maintenance on both our city and private maintenance and inspections, both on our city and private detention ponds. Clean another 1,500 to 2,000 lineal feet of spiked and ditch, and perform a stormwater rate study. Capital projects, there's the fence relocation again at the wastewater treatment plant. We'd like to design and construct the Bevlo Street storm improvements, which is part of the Miller Park. Storm improvements on Spruce Street, that's design only. There's part of the decant facility site study, that's both funded by sewer and storm, since it's used by both those utilities most of the time. And then the last two projects, the Main Street biofilter design only and East Mason Avenue biofilter design only. Those are projects that have resulted in the SMAP. So we're looking at putting these filter cartridges on some of our older basins in the older part of town. Any questions?
I don't see any.
Okay.
There's
2020
nobody on Zoom, right?
2023 street department accomplishments. We got all our crosswalks and curbs painted. We cleaned 16,300 lineal feet of road shoulder. That's the berm on the side of the roads that holds the water on the roads instead of allowing it to get into the ditches. We collected 100 tons of street sweepings. We developed the 2024 through 2029 6-year transportation improvement plan. And we recently have partnered with White River School District to install a pedestrian crossing on Park Ave with the rapid flashing beacons. Those have been ordered. We're just waiting for them to come in. Capital for 2023, the top 4 projects were 2022 consolidated utility projects. The Division Street Road improvement, that's a grind and overlay between Ryan Road and the fire station on Division, which that is included in the Hinkleman Road improvement project. So those both are currently going on right now, although the work on Division hasn't started. For 2024 street department anticipated key projects operationally, we'll develop a new 6-year street transportation plan. We again will paint all crosswalks and curbs, start to replace old and faded street signs, and increase staff presence at the Pierce County Regional Council Transportation Coordinated Committee meetings. As for street capital, there's the Main Street River Ave to SR 410 pedestrian improvement, again, just in the street fund. We've applied for a TIB grant for West Mason Avenue overlay from Hinkleman Extension to Natchez. This project will only happen if we're successful with that grant, which we should know in early November. The Spruce Street from Mason Ave to Main design only. And then the State Route 410 corridor study if we're successful with the SS4A grant. That's it for those, unless people have questions.
So we've covered all aspects of public works with street, storm, sewer, all that stuff. Any questions from council to Director Banks?
I just have questions about budget items on here.
We haven't got to that.
Yep, okay, so no questions.
Councilmember Asano.
I had an email asking when we're getting a new sweeper in the back truck.
Can you guys tell me we can buy one? That. So I kind of answer that, but I'm not proposing to buy any equipment this year or replace any vehicles this year because it is time that we replace our Vector truck first, and that's going to be a large expense. So we need to start planning for that. I know next year it might be a tall order, but if we can't get it next year or in 2025, we will need to move towards getting one in 2026. So we've limped that thing along for a long time. And then the sweeper would be next on that list.
Anything else? Let's move on with numbers.
Numbers, questions. Who's got questions on numbers?
Numbers are all in front of us. Councilmember Burbank, please go.
So in the street operating fund, I just was wanting clarification, the increase of 233% of the park lot lights, where is that? Why is that percent so high? Like, where is it coming? I have a question about that one, and then the professional services, what does that include? And then communication.
For the parking lot lights, we think that there has been some miscoding to some invoices. And you want to,
So, yeah, the way the PSC bills can be confusing, to say the least, of how they're organized. And so some of the street lights may have gotten coded to parking lot lights. And so if anything, the street lights line is probably a little on the low side. And so we're looking at putting just those two together next year, possibly, because there isn't really any separation reason that Chris is aware of in the past, or why we would need to have the parking lot lights separated from the street lights.
Okay.
So it would just be one category for all lighting, but it is increasing all around, just the cost of them. Plus we keep gaining every time there's a new development where they put new street lights in. When the development is completed, the operation of those lights is turned over to the city.
Okay.
So the overall is going to increase when we put it together. And then
I just had a question of what the professional services and what the communication, what goes into those with the street operating fund?
professional services is just kind of general engineering on streets, could be engineering for right-of-way permits or other general street operations. And we've just found that I think it's going down just because we don't need it.
It's going up though.
Which one?
Professional services by
Yeah.
100%.
Oh, yeah. So there's another professional services. So the way ClearGov separates this out, there's two codes. The top line of that charges and services is 542.30. And then the one you were looking at a little lower is 543.30. And the bars coding from the state has very specific coding for a lot of coding for streets. See how it's 542.30 versus 543.30. So one is street administration and one is street operations. And so the one down below that's going up from 7,500 to 15,000 is where a lot of the general engineering type stuff goes. So we had a $7,500 budget in the other line. We had 7,500 in both.
Mhm.
And we're just
Combining
them into the one
Oh, okay.
for
Got
the
it.
most part, because most of it needed to be in that line that you were looking at, and in the past it hadn't been, and so we're consolidating kind of the two lines together. Communication is phone lines, both landline and cell phones. And we've just kind of seen a general increase across all communication lines across all departments for increase in costs.
So like cell phones, like that workers are using? Oh, okay.
So.
Okay.
Yep, I think it was just under budgeted probably for 23 to start with, and then we've seen an increase in costs across. So pretty much a lot, looks like communication lines on both
All
departments are
across.
increasing.
Okay.
Everybody got their packet like on Friday. I'm not gonna say Thursday because I know that there was a delay, and thank you very much for getting it out.
It was Friday.
Other questions? Councilmember Green.
Yeah, are we on water sewer operating fund? You know that page? Okay. For the supplies, chemicals, wastewater treatment plant, 600% increase.
That's that magnesium that I was
Okay.
talking about, and that the permit got implemented about halfway through the year, and those costs it's expensive.
Sure, okay.
Other questions regarding stormwater budget? Street operations budget,
Wait.
sewer fund.
No, that one. Stormwater. I had a question about the stormwater with the dues and descriptions. What are the dues and descriptions that are used in the stormwater operating fund?
So that's,
That's most likely our NPDS
It's-
permits
it's-
and
yeah,
yeah, the
permit.
Okay,
cost.
thank you.
And can you elaborate? I mean, I know what it is, but every time, how often do we have to do the NDP?
Annually.
Annually?
We have to pay them
Okay,
to,
Is it fair to say that they accelerate their costs?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And whatnot,
yeah,
okay.
escalate their
Yeah.
costs?
yep.
yep.
Other questions on stormwater? Budget numbers? Or anything that Director Banks and Director Hines have provided on this? For Public Works,
You,
Councilmember Burbank.
Sorry, one more.
you may have a question about the 1200%.
Yep, that was the one more. Yep, that's what I had blacked.
So that is, we had to rent a crane to lift these mixers out of the basin, which was expensive. The other thing that we ended up having to rent was the tank that magnesium is in. So that's the increase in those costs.
Okay,
And when you take a small budget number and then increase it because we had to go rent it's gonna have to be reflected that way.
Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
The question is warranted and the answer.
Yeah.
The answer is more than satisfactory. We're talking about numbers 101.
Yep.
Anything else for Director Banks?
thank you for your work.
Yeah.
Hearing, yes, perfect. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for that. For the 2024 budget and all that your people do.
Thank you.
Moving on to building and planning, and I think this is going to be city administrator.
Yes, I will be presenting tonight along with Director Banks, who's our interim director.
Minimal.
Yeah.
Only been for a week or two.
You
So-
don't have it straightened up yet?
No.
This department goes without saying has experienced a fair share of setbacks and changes this last year. However, despite that, there are a lot of accomplishments worth celebrating in long range permitting, inspection, and code enforcement. I'm going to just go ahead and summarize as we go through, but if you have any specific questions, happy to be interrupted and answer. So for long range planning, there's been several code amendments, all of which have come through the city council. Most of those were in the first quarter of this last year, as well as we just recently completed the housing action plan. For permitting, we are expecting to complete our cost recovery report and recommend solutions going into the fee schedule for next year, as well as we've started partnering with 2 consulting agencies, Framework and SCJ, in order to regulate our timelines for both current and long range planning. On the backside, you can see building division permits processed in recent years. This is just a snapshot of some of the performance measures that we plan to continue to bring forward to the city council. And it's kind of a preface for what we do need to see in a new permitting software. This type of information, as well as the amount of time it takes for us to review permit applications, are things that are now being mandated that we start to report publicly. And so you can see that the last time that we updated this was in 2022, 2023. We do hope to have updated at the end of this next year. And then those types of dashboards and performance measures will be more publicly available. And then currently total active permits are approximately 146. This number changes on a daily basis as things come in and go out, but approximately 146, some of which were received as late or as far back as 2022, last year. Looking ahead at key projects for next year, we will be seeing a slew of comp plan and development code amendments as we continue to partner with Framework on these efforts and with Chris Farnsworth leading that effort for the long range planning. For permitting and inspections, we plan to refine our processes for permitting, including a new software system, upgrading some forms and checklists, the department webpage, a few of which have already been done thanks to Director Banks' leadership and oversight of those, so we can actually move some of those to the accomplishments list. And then looking at code enforcement, the department will also be partnering with the police department moving forward to process some of our code enforcement cases. Any questions on the narrative? Okay. Looking at the line items, you can see an overall decrease. This is due to staffing changes and one-time costs that will not carry over. Happy to respond to any questions on that.
The budget drop.
Several still.
We don't ever have questions when you decrease it by 50%.
Actually, I have a question. So going to the permits initiated
Yes.
2022 compared to 2023, like
Mhm.
significant decrease.
Yes.
Do we anticipate that kind of that slowness of initiated permits going into 2024, or is it going to be?
Difficult
Spiking
to
up, yeah.
anticipate.
All right,
I was going to say, I wish I had a crystal ball. I would say that in the industry right now, we are all thinking that we are going to see a downturn in permit activity. We've experienced that for sure this year, without a doubt. And we have not seen a significant uptick in the last couple of months. Our busy season is usually just before spring, when people are eager to start building by summer. And so we likely would have seen that uptick late last year. Or early this year. There are some projects that are in the pipeline on the land use side that could generate some building permits, but it's difficult to say how quickly those will come to be. I can't anticipate. We're not expecting any significant change right now. We're not
Gotcha.
waiting on any big project.
Cool, thank you.
Please.
Moving
I
on
see no other
to,
questions.
okay, all right, moving on to administration. So most of all of the accomplishments are shared with council and the department directors that are listed in the first section. I will again just summarize. This year, we were able to hold our strategic planning retreat, and the council was able to formally adopt goals, mission, and vision. We also, along with the director team, has established our first annual organizational work plan, which is something that we're able to review on a regular basis to make sure that we're accomplishing all of our tasks and the goals of the council. We've updated and created and updated the annual city council schedule, which is published online and updated regularly. We've adopted city council discussion rules. We formed the Citizens Advisory Commission and the Senior Advisory Commission. We've already heard from the Senior Advisory Commission, and we'll be hearing from the Citizens Advisory Commission at the next meeting. And then overall increased communication through social media and live streaming platforms. Going to city clerk. We've upgraded our recruiting process to be more competitive for future advertisements. In the past, we still had our own employment application and everything was just centered mostly on the City of Buckley website. Triva has been able to partner with NeoGov, and now we're making our way towards having an online electronic submittal to make it easier for future and more competitive for future advertisements. We've also began live streaming all city council meetings. That's mostly gone off without a hitch. And have those meetings on YouTube, which of course increases our transparency and accessibility for all audiences. And we've broadened our passport services, which is expected to increase revenue and offering that third day, as well as hired a new team member to support that position. Overall, we've also improved our document management process and then drafted an update of the staff administrative policies, which you will all be able to start reviewing early next year. For information technology, we've installed and configured additional security features and then updated many of our previous desktop and laptop combos into one single system, which will decrease the number of devices, that's the word I'm looking for, that need to be maintained and upgraded in future years. For 2024 anticipated key projects, many of these items are carry forward of the work that was already started this year. We are hoping to publish and start a community newsletter, which will go to every mailing address in order to, again, increase our communication and transparency between the city council, citizens, and the business community. For the city clerk, we will finalize the revised administrative policy for all City of Buckley employees, refine our onboarding process for new hires, and create and update online dashboards, which will outline those performance measures, not just for development services, but for many of the other departments as well. And for IT, we will be rebuilding and configuring the new network at City Hall, assuming that we do have a City Hall project next year, transitioning a new software citywide for permits, financial system, registration and event software, and installing and configuring a new backend software at the fire station, as well as implementing a new citywide virus protection software for every device, because cybersecurity continues to be one of our more significant threats. So staying on top of that. For program changes, this next year, we will be looking to invest in a new permitting and financial software to improve our efficiency and operations. Our current system is very out of date. Most systems are able to take on, for example, electronic payments, electronic permit submittals. Our system does neither. And so it is setting us back quite a bit and costing, I believe, more in consultant fees than we would need to pay if we had a better, more robust system, as well as taking staff more time to review applications and certainly making it more difficult for us to hold ourselves accountable for some of the procedures that are now required to be outlined by the state. So all of those different performance measurements that we need to publish online. So with that transparency being mandated, there is a possibility that there will be some funding made available by the state that has not yet officially been released. And so we are requesting a $60,000 one-time allocation for us to research and hopefully implement a new permitting software in this next year. Met with a couple of companies. The bids have come in around $20,000 to $30,000 for the initial onboarding of a system just for permitting, code enforcement, and then special events. Finance will be a separate system, but it is important that we hopefully upgrade both and then they're able to integrate and talk to one another again to just really improve operations organization-wide. So for the initial onboarding, larger costs, our ongoing costs will probably be in the $15,000 to $20,000 annually for the improved system. And then the other program change is to launch that community newsletter, which will, as outlined in the budget, be distributed to every address twice per year. It's about $2,500 each time we mail out to every resident. And the format that we're proposing is basically a couple of 8.5 by 11s in a pamphlet that would be folded over, and that would save in printing costs. And if we wanted long-term to create something more robust, we certainly could. Sumner is the one that we're modeling off of, and they've been able to share their InDesign template with us. So we are saving some initial design costs and just putting in our content. And then I'm going to go to Director Hines, and then all of our line items are combined. So we'll
Cover all those
Yes.
afterwards.
Soccer.
So for the finance department, we obviously have a lot of day-to-day, month-to-month, year-to-year items that we do continuously. And many of those are just to make sure that we have the employees paid accurately and on time, have our vendors paid accurately and on time. And do our monitoring and meeting compliance and reporting to many different agencies, both federal levels for things like ARPA, state level for grants and reporting excise taxes, local level to the county. So there's a lot of different just compliance and reporting things that go on an ongoing basis. So as part of the 23 accomplishments, we're not 100% accomplished, but our goal is to be by the end of the year is to finish the 19 to 21 audit. We started right before Thanksgiving of last year. So we're coming up on a year long doing this 3-year audit. Along with that is some work with the third bullet, which is working on the longstanding issue of the bank reconciliation. And that's been the longest and hardest part of that 3-year audit is just getting our cash reconciled. Excuse me. Obviously, we're preparing and submitting our 24 budget, and that will be done and accomplished before year end. With that, we have been working and presenting to council 6-year financial forecasts, which is helpful, and went along with our 2 budget retreats. We facilitated the granting to 13 small businesses for a total of $65,000 of ARPA funding and to 6 local nonprofits for $27,500. So that was good to see those agencies applying. Working on revising some purchasing policies and procedures that we've advertised for the first Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, LTAC. We need to loop back on figuring out a way of how to actually find somebody to apply to be on the LTAC. Because we haven't had much. There isn't many organizations in town that collect it, so there isn't many that can apply to be on it from the collecting standpoint. So we're gonna have to make some direct calls to actually get some members for our Lodging Tax Committee. We've been working on catching up on billing for the past due on the accounts receivable related to the development related projects. We had kind of made a big push and got up through 19 and 20 when I first was here. Now we're catching up on 21, 22. The work with in the permit system, finding a new way to capture all of those costs and those invoices, so we have a better understanding of what we really should be billing out. And that's what we're also hoping a new permit system will do, is to be able to make that process more efficient than what we're having to do right now. We transitioned utility billing to the finance department. It previously was in public works, and now Kylie, who took over from Charity as the utility billing clerk, is now in the finance department. And I think that's she's been working out great. I did not know you were. I think it's been really helpful. I even just noticed, I mean, there was at least 3 different instances this afternoon where someone came in to pay a utility bill and then said, oh, I have a question on this about my account or this. And I'm like, and Kylie is right there before we would, have to transfer phones or it was, I know, more difficult with Charity, who also was here, was down at Public Works, and we didn't have that kind of face-to-face interaction with the customer all at one time. And there was a lot of transferring of phone calls and those kind of things. So it has been helpful to have both of those services in City Hall. And then we're working on establishing an equipment repair and replacement fund for all the city vehicles and major equipment, and having our consultants help us work through that process. For 2024 anticipated key projects, under direction from the mayor and council, if that is what council chooses to do with the budget process, we'll be pursuing an EMS levy lid lift next year to raise our EMS levy back to its maximum of 50 cents. And that will help provide additional funding for additional staff and relocation of current staff. We're going to work on continuing on more city financial policies. Our policies are either non-existent or out of date, and so we just need to update them, especially with credit cards. Credit card use is more prevalent now than what it was many years ago, and is a much easier way for staff to purchase things. So we just need to make sure we have updated policies and procedures for that. Can work on getting more timely periodic financial reports out to council. And then we'll continue working on the ER&R fund and establishing a financing plan for equipment replacement. We will hold budget retreats with the council again and provide updated financial forecasts similar to this year periodically, so that as we hope to transition to a biennial budget next year, working on the 25-26, we do have to start in an odd year. So next year would be our opportunity to transition to that biennial budget. We will have the financial forecasts and the retreats to help guide that process. City Administrator Brunel talked about, we would like to implement a new system for finance. Our current system is out of date and not as efficient, and our customer service that we're able to receive from the company just is not up to what we need. They've had a lot of change on turnover, and the company's been bought out, and so they don't have the staffing capacity to really help when we need it. And then we will be looking at some processes with utility billing, like water shutoffs and the timing of our bills, and looking at making sure that those are the most efficient. And as Director Banks talked about, installing more of the automated water meters, hopefully getting some of those actually turned on next year to be the radio read, and shorten that reading time process, where it takes multiple days up to a week to read all the meters now. Hopefully can be done within a day or two. So that will help make efficiencies for both departments. Any questions on the narrative of those items? Okay, So the next two line items do cover administration and finances together in one set, and then IT does have its own individual budget. One of the items that I'll probably just speak to in IT is you'll notice the subscription software line has gone up almost 230%. We're still working on kind of transitioning. We started with the 23 budget and we're doing more now next year with moving all of the software subscriptions. Most everything is a software subscription now, not, you don't buy a disc and plug it in anymore. It's considered a subscription. And we're working on centralizing those through the IT budget so that they're not spread across all the different places and little bits and pieces. So we've moved more of those subscriptions out of departments and into the IT budget for next year, as well as having some new ones.
The $60,000.
60,000 coming on board, and ClearGov was in finance last year, and now I've moved it to IT and so forth. So that's what that large increase is for them.
Questions on the numbers? Admin, finance, and IT. I hear and see none, so thank you very much.
I just want to address then the next piece in your
Yes.
packet after the orange. When when the public safety and parks and recreation departments have done their presentations at the last study session, we didn't have the personnel numbers. I didn't have the personnel numbers done at that time. And so those have been completed, and I've updated their sheets with those numbers just so that you were able to see that full budget for each area. So those were just revised line items from the previous study session.
Can I ask a question about those?
Please.
Yeah.
On the Parks and Rec.
Mhm.
For salaries and wages. Why is the wage increase going up by 24%?
Are you on the facilities division?
Yes, whose position is that?
That's mostly our maintenance and custodial position. Previously, it was a portion here and then a portion spread out through some of the other like utility departments for the maintenance of the utility buildings and such. We're
Okay.
putting the 100% of the position now in this department and then recouping that through the indirect cost allocation plan that our consultant recently finished, and recouping it that way. So the utilities will still be paying a portion of that position for maintenance of those buildings.
Okay,
But we're just recouping it through on the revenue side, and 100% of the position is now in this budget instead of a portion.
got it. That makes sense.
So how would that be worded? Because I get the whole concept of putting it all here.
Yep.
So in the other funds that are recouping from, how would that be how would that be?
So in say in the water and sewer fund, instead of a portion of that position showing up in the salaries and benefits line item, it'll show up as a transfer out to the general fund.
Perfect.
Okay.
Makes sense.
And then you'll see it as a transfer in to the revenue side of the general.
And then is the EMS fund, is that increase with talking about with hiring another firefighter?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that was
That's what I was,
a portion of the new firefighter.
got it. Okay.
Any other questions? I see and hear nothing. So that would be the conclusion of the budget presentations. Thank you, Director Hines.
You're welcome.
So we're going to move into city council comments. Go around the table if anybody has any comments.
Just, we're getting into election time and good luck to all the candidates that are out there pounding the pavement and doing what they need to do. I know it can be nerve wracking having gone through that before. Even if you're uncontested, it's still a precarious time for sure.
Anything else? Okay, so at this time, we're going to adjourn the special Buckley City Council special study session at, we'll call it 6:50 p.m. And we're going to move to a closed session regarding collective bargaining issues, which is not subject to a public